Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun.Deals. Today, we are going to be talking about the Primary Arms 3X Micro Magnifier. Now, this is a very simple video to make because there's not a lot to complain about, because this is fortunately a very good product that does everything that it's supposed to do at a very reasonable price. It's very simple, there's very little to screw up, and fortunately Primary Arms didn't, so this should be a fun change of pace for most of you. But before we get into that, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and it does help us out quite a bit. And go ahead and comment your favorite micro magnifier, well, some would say full size, in the comments down below. Now, full disclosure on this magnifier is that I paid my own money for it, but I am a dealer for Primary Arms, so I get them for a little bit of a discount, so keep that in mind. Now, there are two different versions of this magnifier. There are the two color variations, which is black and FDE, as you see here. And then there's also the Pegasus ACSS version, which is the version to buy if you want ranging features in the prism, where it has a little bit of a ranging reticle, which we will talk about a little bit later. This is just the basic version, which is also very good at the magnifying thing. It just doesn't have the ranging reticle inside. Now, for the version that you see here, this is, of course, a 3X magnifier, and they are right at or under $2, especially if they're on sale. You can find these for a pretty good price. Now, the one thing that I will say about the price is that these don't ship with mounts from Primary Arms, so you will have to buy a mount. They do offer one. It is the standard 2-bolt variety, so think EOTech, Vortex Micro, Trijicon. There's a lot of aftermarket mounts that will work with this magnifier, so it's not one of those specialized patterns, so there's a big aftermarket support for whatever style of magnifier you want. Now, I went ahead and bought the magnifier, the flip-to-side magnifier mount from Primary Arms, which I think is also not particularly expensive. It is very robust. It has, a recoil lug, which you don't need on a magnifier. It doesn't need to hold zero. 2 substantial cross bolts, so the mount is really good. But honestly, I would prefer a QD setup just so that I could take it on and off without a tool. And if you don't need it, you can take it off your rifle, you can switch it in between rifles, whatever it happens to be. Personally, I would prefer a QD mount on something that doesn't even need to retain zero. Now, getting into basics of the magnifier itself, this is, of course, their micro variation, so it's about 2.5 inches long, 3x magnification. Up front, we have a 21mm objective, which gives you a 7mm exit pupil at 3x magnification, of course. In terms of controls, you have exposed windage and elevation, which you can center the reticle with. They're in 1/4 MOA, which is way too fine, because again, remember, we're not adjusting the reticle itself. We're not adjusting zero. We're just centering the reticle within the glass to satisfy your OCD. So they don't need to be as fine as they are, but c'est la vie. Now, in the back, we have a diopter for adjusting the red dot to look as good as it can for you personally. Some people might need to mess around with that. If you are trying to put a prism in front of that, you will definitely need to mess around with the diopter, but for the most part, when I'm using red dots, I just leave it all the way in. And that's it as far as controls go. Very simple. Now, in terms of weight, without the mount, just the magnifier by itself is just under 6 ounces. And then with the mount, you're looking at about 8.5 ounces total. You combine that with a standard T2 style red dot, and you're looking at about 13 ounces. Or if you combine it with a pig like the SIG Romeo 8T like I did, you're looking at about 20 ounces total, which is about the same weight as an LPVO, but that's a fault of the Romeo 8T. Now, two very important things when it comes to magnifiers is the mechanical eye relief and the actual eye relief. So mechanical eye relief is the actual eye relief plus the length of the body. So this is a micro magnifier with about 3 inches of eye relief, but the eye relief starts at the end of the short body. So you will have to mount this a little bit further back on most receivers to get the actual eye relief of, say, a full-size magnifier. Because again, even if a full-size magnifier has the exact same actual eye relief, if the body is 1 inch longer, you get an extra inch or so of actual eye relief, right? If that makes sense. But again, with about 3 inches of eye relief, it's very workable on almost any setup out there, unless it's something that requires extra eye relief. If you're looking for something like that, look elsewhere at a different red dot if you need that additional eye relief. Now, another thing that's important on magnifiers is going to be field of view. Field of view is rated at 35 feet at 3x, which is approximately 105 feet at 1x at 100 yards, which is firmly in the fine category. It looks perfectly fine. It's nothing special, but it looks fine. Also, another thing that is fine about the magnifier is the glass quality. I think the glass quality for a 3x prism is decent. It's very boring. Now, the problem with most prisms is, for some reason, most 3x magnifiers don't have like great glass. So this is actually middle of the pack, I would say, for a not expensive dollar amount. And again, it is compact, relatively lightweight, and still has a decent enough eye relief to actually be usable. Now, in terms of actually using the thing, I've used it in conjunction with the Romeo AT with the drop dots for shooting out to 300, 400, 500 yards, and I've also shot it out with just a regular Romeo 5 that doesn't have those drop dots, and also shot it out to extended distances. And 3x magnification may not sound like much on paper, because it's not, but it is way better than nothing. So you have a chance to spot your misses at extended ranges, or spot low probability targets, or, get better positive ID, any of those things with a magnifier than without, for a relatively lightweight penalty. Now, something to keep in mind when you're stacking glass behind glass is that usually the red dots, most red dots, have some tint, whether it's blue, green, or brown, or some tint to them, and you're going to be magnifying that image. So the better the optic you're putting in front of it, the better your magnifier is actually going to perform, because again, you're just magnifying whatever's in front of it. So if you have an EOTech in front of this, the glass is going to look very good. If you have a Holosun 403 with a crazy blue notch filter, well, you're just magnifying a blue notch filter, right? Fortunately, the Romeo 8T looks very good. The Romeo 5 looks okay. So depending on what you're using in front of this thing is going to change how it actually looks. Again, the one thing that I will say about this mount is that it is a good mount. It has a very robust lock and unlock. It's very overbuilt for what it is, but I would prefer to have it as a QD lever so that I could take it off. You can use it as a monocular if you need to. You can save the weight, put it in a pouch, put it on a different rifle, whatever it may be. The only thing that I would personally change about this setup is going to a QD style mount. Now, talking briefly about the other version that Primary Arms makes of this optic, and that is the Pegasus. It simply has a ranging ladder in the bottom. It does not need to be zeroed. It's just sitting there in the bottom so that you can range targets at extended distances. And instead of guessing at 300, 400, 500 yards, you actually have some usable brackets. There's no weight penalty. There's very little cost penalty. If it's a feature you think you might use, the Pegasus version is the one to buy. And in fact, I'll probably be buying a second one of these with the Pegasus reticle, because I think it is just a straight upgrade with no downside other than a small financial hit. I think the price delta is only like $20, $30, so it's really not much of a hit to get that extra bit of performance. So in terms of the gun sphere, that's one of the best performance to price ratios you can find. So is it exceptional, blow your socks off in terms of performance and value, something that you just must absolutely have? No, not at all. But it is a pretty good option. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It doesn't cost too much money, and it's a pretty neat little guy. So not particularly exciting, but just another good option if you happen to need a magnifier. Again, the only thing I would change on this setup is swapping to a different mount. But with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the Primary Arms 3x Micro Magnifier. Again, some might say full size, but let me know what you think of that in the comments down below. If there's other magnifiers that I should try out and compare it against. But once again, with all of that out of the way, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.